I just watched Scream 5 and Scream 6. Grab your popcorn. I'm about to tell you which movie's better. Welcome to Which Movie's Better, the show where we tell you which movie's worth your time and what movie you can send to the back of the line. If you're new here, welcome to the VHS Files. If you're coming back, thanks for coming back and watching us. Today we're talking about Scream 5 and Scream 6. I happened to sit down and watch Scream 5 and then went and saw Scream 6 the very next day, and I'm here to tell you my notes on what I think is the better movie. Scream 5 was released last year and revitalized the Scream series, much to the dismay of some people. I mean, Wes Craven had directed all 4 Scream movies previously, and now since his passing, we're getting some new people behind the camera for the Scream series. So a lot was on the table to bring something new, something fresh to the Scream franchise.
You gotta build something new, but not too new, or the internet goes bug fucking nuts.
To keep it going, and also pay a good tribute to Wes Craven's films. So with Scream 6 coming out, I decided to give Scream 5 a rewatch because honestly, I did not accept Scream 5 very well.
Come on, it's just a movie. No, it's not. To some people, the original is their favorite thing in the world.
It's not because I'm loyal to the Wes Craven films or anything of that nature. It's simply because I think there are major problems with Scream 5. There's a lot of things going on in that movie that I'm questioning.
Wait, what?
I don't think make a whole lot of sense, and we'll get into those here in just a moment. Scream 6, however, is something different.
I'm something different.
That's why I'm gonna shoot you in the head.
I think there's a lot that Scream 6 has to offer, where I think Scream 2022 fell a little flat for me.
I can't believe this worked.
We'll start with Scream 5. I will say a lot of Scream 5 is familiar.
If the shoe fits.
It's obvious that they're having to set up a new go-around for this franchise. So they're bringing in new characters, bringing in the legacy characters, and trying to bring in the old fans and get new ones. I completely understand that. And being an old fan, I was anxious to see what they were going to do with that.
So the first 3 attacks are all on people related to the original killers.
Oh my God, he's making a requel.
I can usually turn my brain off and kind of put some things to the side and let things go and suspend my disbelief when it comes to certain things. But on a rewatch, I still had the same problems with that movie that I had originally. I felt like it almost took itself too seriously. And while characters are making fun of the fact that they are in a horror movie and that they are calling out the fact that there are tropes happening that happen within the Scream movies, the meta on meta stuff in there, it's trying to be clever and bring something modern to this new Scream film. But watching it now, it just comes across as stupid to me.
You know, I actually really liked that one.
Of course you did. You have terrible taste.
I hate you.
So Radio Silence taking over directorial duties after the passing of Wes Craven. They direct the movie very well. I think the movie looks great. I think the pacing is good.
How do we make it feel aesthetically like it's of the Scream world and also make it feel like it's of now and like it's fresh and modern?
I just think some of the story beats in this movie don't work very well. And I'm going to get into some of those. Number one, I think the opening scene is a little flat. It doesn't feel grand like the original Scream movie did. And I understand you're never going to replicate the original Scream.
Oh, just some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
But I don't even know if the Scream 5 opening scene comes anywhere close to any of the other opening scenes in the franchise.
There's no element of surprise. You can see everything coming.
Did that surprise you?
Scream 5's opening scene gives you very little and doesn't develop the character that we're watching very well. Also, it is the first Scream movie where there is not a death of a major character in the opening scene.
Jesus, Mindy, there wasn't a first killing. Tara's alive.
I mean, she could still die.
What the fuck?
That felt a little weak to me as a Scream fan. However, it's Jenna Ortega. She's huge right now, so therefore can't kill Jenna Ortega off. So we introduce Sam, her sister, who we find out is Billy Loomis's illegitimate daughter. And that's where the story starts. So we've got to bring her back to Woodsboro. We've got to find out what her backstory is, and then her boyfriend, Richie, tags along, who apparently doesn't know anything about the killings, doesn't know anything about horror movies, so on and so forth.
You've never seen Stab? Not even the one that came out last year?
I mean, I've never seen Gone with the Wind either, but I don't consider it like a huge hole in my cinematic education.
The actress who plays Sam, Melissa Barrera, is okay in this. I felt a little bit better about her on a rewatch. On that first watch, I thought Sam was a very weak lead character. And then you've got Jack Quaid, who's done quite a few things, looks very much like his father, Dennis Quaid, coming in and kind of playing side to her. And it's just a strange dynamic between the two of them. You've also got a strange dynamic between Tara and Sam in the film, which kind of makes everything a little off kilter. And then we're introduced to our new group of friends that we follow throughout this film. I don't feel like there's a ton of character development with our new group of teens. They very quickly set it up and go. And I think that hurts the film because they know they have to bring in our legacy characters. We've got to introduce David Arquette to help us figure out who the new Ghostface killer is. You bring Sydney in, obviously, because she's the scream queen of this franchise. To be completely honest, watching it this time and knowing that we're not getting Neve Campbell in part 6, I don't think Neve Campbell was necessary in this film. I don't really think Courtney Cox was all that necessary. But if you're bringing Dewey in, I can see the natural progression of bringing in Gale Weathers. One of the biggest issues I have with this movie is knowing who the killers are in this film.
I'm not the fucking killer! I know.
When you get the reveal that Amber and Richie have been the ones planning all of this and getting everyone to Woodsboro,
But really was the best choice for the movie.
and you start to figure out who was killing who throughout the movie, that's where I have some issues. I haven't quite pinpointed who killed who in every scene, but it's quite obvious that Amber is the killer who takes out Dewey. I have a very big problem with that. The fact that you want me to believe that Amber killed Dewey is really problematic for me.
You know what else you shouldn't do when there's a masked killer around?
What?
Follow someone into a dark, creepy basement alone.
I don't feel Amber, being of her size and physique, would be able to take the gunshots that she gets, even though it's in a bulletproof vest, and still have the strength to take Dewey out. And also, watching it the second time, she's also the one who attacks Chad at the house later when we get to our third act. I also find that to be quite problematic. This is a big football player jock character.
Time to introduce him to Hobbs and Shaw.
I think he could have outran Amber. I think Amber could not have gotten the drop on a character that is of that size and physique.
That actually does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That is a problem for me. When Sheriff Hicks is killed in the film, when she was just driving a police vehicle with sirens going like crazy to her house and is killed in broad daylight in front of her house, is a little weak for me. Also, when you have her son Wes looking out the front door and not seeing her bloody body on the lawn is also a little problematic. When you boil it all down, just some of the logistics in Scream 5 bring it way down for me. I also think Neve Campbell is very underutilized. Also, Gale Weathers is underutilized. Again, watching it a second time and knowing where we go, I think it wasn't really necessary to bring the legacy characters back. But I understand why they did. They have to get people in the seats.
Hello?
They probably should have switched Dewey and Gale around. I would have been able to live with the fact that Gale died in Scream 5 and not Dewey a little bit better. Also, if they could have played around with the logistics of who was where, and maybe Richie was the Ghostface that killed Dewey, I would believe that a little bit more.
It's an honor.
It's just one of those things that I can't get past. So overall, Scream 5 just still doesn't work for me on a few levels. I think the writing is very weak. I don't think it's as clever as it's trying to be.
Are you telling me that I'm caught in the middle of fan fucking fiction?
I'm sure if you go back through the Scream series, you can find problems that are relative to this throughout the entire series, but when you're revitalizing this franchise and trying to get a movie that's going to establish where we're going from this point forward, I don't know if this one does it all that well.
You don't fucking understand. These movies are important to people.
As I said, it is very competently made. I feel like the writing could have been a bit better. I feel some of the performances in Scream 5 are wooden. I think maybe Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox weren't really bringing their A game. I don't think their performances are all that captivating, and I honestly question whether or not they should even be in the film.
Fuck you.
Now, this brings us to Scream 6.
I hear you're a horror fan.
Scream 6 is a great time.
It's been said.
It doesn't really go where you think it's going to go. I'm not going to spoil Scream 6. I know it's new on everybody's plate and everybody hasn't seen it yet, so I'm not going to get into details. But I will say the opening scene is much better than the opening scene in Scream 5 in how it develops and what they do with characters in that opening scene. I find to be very interesting. Now, what I think works best in Scream 6 is they develop our characters much more here. We know them from Scream 5, and we're bringing them over to this one. We're setting them in a new setting in New York City, which we've never done before. Now, there have been Scream movies that haven't taken place in Woodsboro. There was Scream 2 that took place in the college town. Scream 3 took place in Hollywood, which is still in California, but not Woodsboro, even though you've got the familiar setting of the movie sets in Woodsboro. But it technically does not take place in Woodsboro. So therefore, 1, 4, and 5 are the only ones that take place in Woodsboro. So you bring us to New York City, and that automatically makes it feel much more fresh.
One of the things that was so interesting to us is that we all got really excited about New York. The things that we get excited about as movie lovers when we hear something is in New York. It's got an energy that you just love seeing in movies. And I think one of the things that we did is we wanted to make this a movie that is about people living their lives in New York, not New York.
Not the tourist version.
Yeah, so we were like, this isn't about going to the Statue of Liberty and Empire State Building. This is about people living their lives in a giant city where there's millions of people. And how does that energy affect it, especially in contrast to a small, sleepy suburb like Woodsboro?
Sam and Tara are now living in New York with Chad and Mindy from the previous film, who are very good characters. I like the dynamic between them being brother and sister. I like the dynamic between them and Tara and Sam. And it just feels a lot more organic in this movie. You've got Sam, who's being very watchful and protective over Tara.
Time has passed. Yes, of course, Tara loves her sister, and it's been so nice to have her re-enter her life. The only issue is, now Sam will not leave her alone for a second. And I think that any teenager kind of understands, or just anyone in general, sometimes you just need your space. Sometimes you're just worn down, and Tara does not have that opportunity. So again, we're kind of going at each other's throats, but a bit more intensely than we were in the last one.
Now, I won't say there aren't problems with Scream 6. I think on a rewatch, I could probably pick it apart a lot like I do with Scream 5 on a rewatch. But the overall feeling of Scream 6 was a much more positive reaction out of me.
Did you miss me?
I watched Scream 5 the first time with a very negative attitude. It just didn't seem like it was hitting the points that I wanted it to hit. Maybe for a younger generation, it felt fresh and it was something that they could latch on to. For me, being an old school Scream fan, it was hard to latch on to what was going on in Scream 5. And again, collective with some of the stupid decisions that are made in that movie, it made that movie go down. In this one, everything feels like it made sense on that first watch. Even though some of the choices that are made in the movie are a little dumb and unrealistic, like you've got a guy shooting up a convenience store for 10 minutes and there are no cops, no one responding, no one coming into this place to help in New York City, where everybody is out walking around on the street. Seems a little off, but I can roll with that. I can suspend my disbelief with that. But Ghostface does feel a lot different in this film, as they promise in the trailer. There's a little bit more of a dynamic going on with what their motivations are as the Ghostface killers and why they're targeting Tara, Sam, and their friend group.
Maybe, but there's never been one like me, Gale.
And while it does play in the meta aspect that the Scream franchise has always played in, I don't really feel like the meta aspect was played up as much as it was in Scream 5. It's definitely there. And they go through all of the rules for making a sequel to a requel and all of those things, which can kind of seem a little silly, but I think the characters being more developed and knowing our characters going into this movie a little bit better makes those scenes play a lot better than they did in Scream 5. Now, I also want to address the elephant in the room that Neve Campbell did not come back for this movie. They couldn't give her the money that she was asking for, and I don't even really know where she would have fit into this movie. I think Neve Campbell and Sidney Prescott not being in Scream 6 might have helped it, to be honest. It's time to move past that. It's time to give her her happy ending and let her go on and live her life. They do bring Gale Weathers back. Obviously, it's in the trailer. She does serve a purpose. She feels like the old Gale Weathers in this movie. Was she necessary? Maybe not. The biggest thing they do bring back from the franchise is Hayden Panettiere's Kirby Reed.
She's the reason why I love horror movies. I'm sure she'd love to hear that.
In our podcast where we talked about the probability of Kirby being alive or dead and being in these new run of films was very much a thing. And I'm so glad we got the Easter egg in Scream 5. It works for me. And I'm so glad they brought her back. She was the most charismatic and interesting character in Scream 4. And I was so upset when they quote unquote killed her in that movie. I thought she could have been a great asset to this franchise.
Halloween, Texas Chainsaw, Dawn of the Dead, The Hills Have Eyes, Amityville Horror.
And I think they came around and figured out, yeah, we can use her and use her to good form in this. She's not been someone who's been sitting in the shadows scared to live her life. She's joined the FBI. She's been investigating serial killers. And since Ghostface has popped back up, she's taken an interest in this case.
When you're in a big city, there's a completely different version of there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. It could be anybody. The killer could be anybody.
Everybody's a suspect!
Kirby's back because fans love her character, and she gets to like play this is she, isn't she, like is she on their side or is she not, and all these like moments of doubt. And I think fans are gonna really love that journey of hers.
All that makes sense. It works for me. So in that aspect, I was very happy that you're bringing back a character that I thought deserved to be brought back.
Exactly.
And there are some genuinely funny moments in Scream 6. There were moments where I laughed out loud, and I thought it was clever how they worked the comedy that they were playing with in this movie.
You know you're like the 10th guy to try this, right? It never works out for the dipshit in the mask.
I thought the motivations of the characters and some of the new characters that are introduced in this were a little bit more solid than some of the things that were brought to the table in Scream 5. Like the guy they kill in the parking lot in Scream 5. I didn't really know what his point was. Apparently he's related to Stu Macher.
His mom is Leslie Macher. Stu Macher's sister.
Who's Stu Macher?
If you wouldn't have said that within the film, it wouldn't have made any sense that he was there. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense that he's there anyway, honestly, but that's the decision they made in that film. I will say, watching Scream 6, there was a particular moment where we get some information about the killers and what their motivations are and what they're doing.
This isn't like any other Ghostface.
What is this place? A shrine.
As you're watching the film and discovering what's going on in this place, it kind of lends to the idea that there's only one way somebody could have gotten all of this, and it sort of plays into where we go in the final act of this movie. And the final act of the film is really where I think it falters the most. The reveal of the killer, or killers, as it's famously done in most of these movies, is a little flat. It works, it makes sense, but it still seems a little odd and goofy. And again, on a rewatch, the logistics of some of what happens in the movie may not make a whole lot of sense when you find out which character is supposed to be where at what time. But overall, there are some very tense moments in this movie as well. There is the subway scene, which we've seen in the trailers, that really kind of had my butt clenched. I mean, the subway scene in this film is really good. There is also a scene where characters have to get from one side of a building to another on a ladder that is going between two windows. And that scene is quite tense as well. So there's a lot that this film brings to the table and offers that I felt was very much lacking in Scream 5. This movie is definitely bigger in scale, bigger in scope, bigger in character. It really just worked for me on a level that Scream 5, not so much. So where does that put us? Scream 5, Scream 6, which movie's better? I think it's pretty obvious from where I've been going that I think Scream 6 is a much more solid entry in the Scream series. I think Scream 6 is miles better than Scream 5, but unfortunately you do have to go through Scream 5 to get to Scream 6, so there's that. But there are things they do in Scream 6 that make Scream 5 a little more believable in certain aspects, so I'll let you guys watch Scream 6 and kind of determine on your own what you think of how they play with certain things and certain character beats and stuff from 5 that moves to 6. Overall, the movie is much more of a fun time than I had with Scream 5. So therefore, I'm going to say, which movie's better? Scream 6 all the way. I definitely recommend go to the theater and see Scream 6. It's a hell of a fun time in the theater. It brought me back to that original feeling in 1996 of seeing Scream for the first time. The audience reaction to some of the stuff that happens in Scream 6 was a lot more fun and energetic than what I experienced with the theater experience of Scream 5. Again, I don't have any issue with the fact that Neve Campbell did not come back for this film. I honestly don't think that she's necessary in Scream 6, and it doesn't hurt the film, in my opinion. So I'd love to know what your opinions are of Scream 5, if you have some of the same issues that I have with that movie, if you were able to look past it and really enjoy that film. I definitely had a better time watching Scream 6 than Scream 5. And Scream 7 has already been greenlit, so they're going to continue on with these characters. It's going to be interesting to see where we go in the next installment of the Scream series. I mean, there's a lot of speculation about Stu Macher's character and bringing Matthew Lillard back. That's the only big spoiler I will give you in this film, is they do put a big question mark on whether or not Stu Macher is dead.
Hold on a sec. I'll be right back.
And again, if you're a fan of Scream 5, you're gonna love Scream 6. I was very hesitant going into Scream 6 that they would be able to capture my attention because I was so disappointed in Scream 5. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think of Scream 5? What did you think of Scream 6 if you've seen it? How would you compare and contrast the two? Do you think Scream 5 is a great film and I'm just an old fogey who's set in his ways? Or do you think Scream 5 had some problems and you were a little hesitant to go into Scream 6 knowing that there were problems with that movie? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments below. Please check out our merch store at redbubble.com so you can pick up a VHS Files mug or a tumbler, a hat, t-shirt, anything like that helps this channel out quite a bit. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you're new to this channel, please hit that subscribe button if you like this video, and hit the notification bell so you can join us next time when we answer the question, which movie's better? I'd like to give a big thank you to anyone who's watched this video. This is something new I'm going to be doing here on the channel. We're still going to have the podcast. We're still going to have For New Eyes Only. So if you're into James Bond, check out For New Eyes Only in the video feed. We will still be doing VHS Files videos. We're going to be doing new podcasts, clips that are going to be going up, so make sure you stay tuned for all of that. And I'm going to be doing which movie's better here. Maybe I'll have some guests on from time to time, but it's really just going to be a way for me to kind of compare and contrast the movies I've been watching. It may be two movies that are in sequence with each other from a franchise. It may be just two random movies that I watch here and there, and I'm going to compare and contrast the two. So it's something I think might be fun. Please let me know in the comments below if you like what we're doing here, and thank you so much for watching. Be kind, rewind.